So welcome everybody to Road Conversations. This is the 4th episode, but the second one here in the studio. And today I'm blessed to be able to be here with Pastor Justin Kowalski.
There you go.
PJ, as we know him, at Sandoz Church right here at the best campus. Can we say that?
I mean, you can say that.
I can say that. You can't say it,
yeah.
but I can say
you
that.
Can say that.
No, but it's going to be a really fun conversation. But let me let you guys know a little bit about Justin right here. He began his career with a variety of roles from freelancer, graphic design, and retail and construction, and audiovisual events. This is something probably very interesting when it comes to building social media, audiovisuals.
Yeah, it predated a lot of like when I was doing that, there wasn't any social media really. It was MySpace. That was it.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah.
I was
doing events with my brother-in-law because I was
Okay.
out of college, and like once you finish school, you don't start working where you want. So I'm just trying to make money.
You work wherever you can find it.
Yeah, where you can find work. So yeah, it was like you do all the things.
Is that part of how everything started when, let's just say, you work in construction, right?
Yeah.
What was that time life in construction? How old were you when you were doing construction?
I was like 22.
22. What
Yeah.
type of construction were you doing?
I was swinging doors and doing finishing work. And so mostly we were installing doors in apartments that weren't built yet. And so no elevators. We would have to walk doors all the way up to the top, to the floors that we had. So we had like contracts, like you're doing these floors, right?
Okay.
And so I would do that. And then we would install the hardware, like, hinges, handles. And then for whatever reason, we also did the bathroom trim, which was, handles, toilet paper holders, bathroom cabinets, boom, boom, boom. That's what we would do. And then you do it again because sometimes people would come at nighttime and steal everything. And so you'd have to redo it. It was just like Groundhog Day. You're like, I'm doing this again? So yeah.
I'm doing this again.
Yeah.
I've never been handy, honestly. We always make a fun at the house. There's a joke. Wendy, my wife.
Yeah.
We have a tool bit, and all the tools belong to her. They don't belong to me. Were you always handy? Were you always that type of guy, or you learn on the spot?
I'm both. I'm intuitive. I like. Oh, how can I break? I'm not an instruction reader, which can sometimes be bad. I just like. I can see how it like goes together. But yeah, I like to learn. Like I'm always watching like YouTube stuff, like DIY stuff. Like, oh, how can I do that? How can I make that? And you learn. I've learned a lot, like in trying stuff because, sometimes when you want to take the shortcut, you come up short. You're like, oh man, why'd I do that? I should have spent more money on like better wood because you buy that common wood and it's all crooked. Mm-hmm. Anyways, like there's always like, man, what did I do that for? So you just learn. But I just like to learn. I like to like.
In this time of your lifetime, man, who was Justin at that time? What was your drive back into when you were 22, 23? At that point, was your relationship with God the way it is right now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think when I hit 22, I was starting to really like understand what a family of faith could be. I grew up in a Christian home. Like was like, yeah, that's all I knew. But you have to actively be a part. You have to make that decision. Like, am I truly going to say, hey, I'm going to follow after Jesus? Because just being born into the faith doesn't make you a Christian, right? Like you have to confess that truth, right? And so my dad had lung cancer when I was 20. He had lung cancer when I was like 5, 6 years old, and then and I didn't know all the details, but he should have died then. They said he only had 6 months to live back then, and as we what he ended up telling us, and my mom said they didn't give Dad much time to live back then, but he made like just a confession to the Lord. It was like, I want to see my kids grow up, and in doing because of that, I promise I'll serve you for my remaining in my days, right? And so my mom, she was involved in a ministry like here in Riverside. It's not just a Riverside ministry. It's it's worldwide. It's called Teen Challenge. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's not really for teens. That's the name's really weird because like most of the people you come across, they're like 30s, 40s. But it's called Teen Challenge. It's drug rehab, life change center. Okay. So people go there, whether it's they are in jail, just alcohol, drugs, whatever, gangs. They come out of just a lifestyle that was taking them off course, and so they have like I might get this percentage wrong, but it's high. It's like 83% cure rate of abuse. And they don't usually get a lot of credit because it's faith-based, but it's all good. They don't need credit. Like God's got the credit,
let
right?
him know what
And
your right hand does.
yeah. And so my mom was working there, and my dad just, once he, got out of the hospital, it was like on recovery. He was like, he started just volunteered there.
Wow.
He got volunteered himself into a job essentially. Ended
Okay.
up like counseling, and he did a lot of the like people would do donations, so he'd oversee all that type of stuff. So
Man, that's
Yeah.
such an amazing miracle to hear that. My dad transitioned from lung cancer.
Oh.
This was back in 2021, a month before Hazel, my youngest daughter, was born.
Oh wow.
And I remember when during COVID, when we were having the conversation with him, he had a cough, and the cough wouldn't subside. It kept on going.
Yeah.
He went to Kaiser. They kept on treating it as a bronchitis, and then almost after 3 months, 4 months of battling, trying to figure out what was going on with him, it's like he calls us and he tells us, "Hey guys, I got cancer. I had lung cancer, stage 4, so it's already terminal." So that to me, it was the beginning of getting closer in my relationship with God.
Yeah.
9 months prior to him being diagnosed is when I had the calling from God.
Wow.
Come get closer to me. There's something that is going to change in your life.
Yeah.
To the point that I bought my first Bible.
Wow.
On my own, and this is how my journey started to trying to coming and turning my life around from who I used to be to trying to get to know God. But man, that's awesome. That's awesome
Yeah.
to hear that your dad was able to give his life to him, give him
Yeah.
the second chance, and he beat the lung cancer. That is awesome. I'm really happy to hear
Yeah.
that.
It was like I think he had 17 years, like from when he first had it to when I was like 22, and so when that happened, I still remember like just being really confused and frustrated, and because when it came back, we're like, lung cancer came back, because I remember he lost his voice,
Okay.
and we were like, what happened? Why'd you lose your voice? Thought he was sick, and then found out it was the cancer is back, and I guess it was pinching something like that was affecting his vocal cord. But yeah, and when we found out it came back, it was July like 2001 or whatever, 2000. Yeah, and he was, he passed away in October, and so it was pretty fast. But during that time, what really helped me, like just kind of cemented my faith was the church. It was Sandals. It was barely getting started back then, but my sisters were going, and my brother-in-law, and I'm at the, Pastor Matt came over to my mom's house and was like, "Hey, how you doing?" Some of the staff members, and I was like, "What's this all about, man?" I just was kind of resistant.
You mean like the church?
Yeah, like he
Okay.
came over, like the staff came over and like, "Hey, we'll pray with you." Prayed with my dad, and I was like, that was cool. I was just kind of I was a punk rock kid, and so I was I was a little like, I had my guard up, and I would have considered myself back then a believer, but I was very immature, and I think I was naive in my faith.
Okay.
And then once my dad passed, a few weeks later, the church just showed up, man. Like, and I'd never seen it before like that. Like, being a part of church all my life, I'd never seen the church like be the church, like Book of Acts style, like people showing up, bringing food. Like, I had a guy mowing my lawn one day. I was like, "Why are you mowing my lawn?" He's like, "So you don't have to, man. So you can just relax and be with your family." And it like clicked, and I was like, "This is what it's supposed to be. Like, this is what the church should be, right?" And so in that moment, like those moments, I was just like, "All right, I'm not going to screw around no more." And I just jumped all in. I started like serving, volunteering, kids, and I was like, "I'm going to be a part of this church community."
At this time when that happened, did you already had the business?
No.
Your wife had the business already? Or
No, because I wasn't married yet. I didn't get married for years. So yeah. So what I was trying to do at that point, so it all kind of converges. I just got out of like school, and I was like trying to make it as a graphic designer in California, because I wanted to illustrate, I wanted to do design. I just wanted to be a part of it all. I wanted to make posters and stuff. I just was like, my business was me trying to like do it for myself. Like, I didn't want a boss. I didn't want to work for anybody. And so I was just constantly connecting with like bands and whatever, just trying to do stuff. But it was just hard. It was hard to do. It's hard to make it. I had drive, but I just, sometimes hitting it in that world is just who you know and luck. And I may not have networked well. Artists don't really network well sometimes, at least back then. Very ego driven, man. It's like, oh, we don't want to show nobody nothing. I think it depends on who you're with, but I just felt like I couldn't get a leg up, so I would just do stuff. So Yeah, so when I got into like business stuff, my wife is the business person. You should have her sitting here. She's the business.
We will. We'll
Yeah,
invite
yeah.
her
You
one
can
of
have.
these
She would
days.
love to do it. She
Invitation
would
for
love
you.
to do it. She's the business brain. I'm like I'm an idea guy.
Okay.
I'm like I get excited about stuff. She's numbers, how we should do it, the approach, and I'm like, why don't you just do it? Just jump on in, which is probably why I had some problems. But yeah, so I just kind of floated around and I wanted to I wanted to make it so bad, but you have to pay bills, and that's why I was doing construction and did audio visual work. Hung lights, sound, ran sound, did all this stuff that you'd see behind the scenes. And so, but I was like, oh, I can do this. This is fun. So it just continued to add to my repertoire of things I can do. I was like, I can do that now. I can do that. And so, yeah, I just continued on in freelancing and doing graphic design work. I did a lot of stuff with bands. Early days.
You're a musician too, right?
Yeah. I played in some bands, but I would put that like at the bottom of my list of like skills.
Okay.
Sometimes I can, but it's like mostly with my son in the garage. That's it.
How was that lifestyle for you when in the music? Because to me,
Uh-huh.
this is a side of my life that I don't talk about it anymore.
Uh-huh.
It's it's buried really deep inside. I played music for a long time. That's what I went to school for.
Okay, what did you play?
I played drums.
Okay.
And for a long time, we got to play cool venues, man. We got
Yeah.
to play the BB Kings, the House of Blues.
Oh, nice.
We got to go to other states to play with the
Yeah.
band that I had with my brother. This was rock en español, and then I played in a country band.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, music. Music helped me a lot to figure out who I was.
Yeah.
A little bit history behind me is doctors told my mom I was supposed to be dead at the age of 12.
Wow.
So then we moved to the States. I find a doctor. Doctor started to take care of me. I had a kidney transplant back in 2005. That's when I had my kidney transplant.
Okay.
But I was a very shy guy.
Mm-hmm.
So through music, I was able to kind of get to know a little bit of who I thought I was or who I was
Yeah.
at that time. Music helped me out a lot. But then as I got deeper in the music lifestyle, it was the opposite.
Yeah.
Then with the music came in the drugs. With the music came the alcohol. It came the hanging out with the groupies.
Yeah.
And the band, it was never huge, but it got to the point that some people knew who the band was.
Yeah.
But that to me was a point in my life that I would drink from Thursday all the way to Sunday with the guys in the band. And for sure at that time, God was not in my crosshairs whatsoever. It was a completely different lifestyle. And that's part of why after this point, people ask me, do you want to go back and play? I'm like, no, that life is done to me. Like, it's not where I wanted to pursue it anymore.
Yeah.
But it was a time in my life that it helped me to come closer to God.
Yeah.
I always like to say this. I had to be with the devil to be able to come in and accept God in my life, Jesus in my life.
Yeah.
And that to me is, I don't want to say the music was the devil,
Yeah.
but it was a different.
It could be a gateway,
Yeah.
I would say, hey, play drums at church.
I've been
totally
thinking about
should.
that. Tony, you're a bass player.
Yeah, you should, man.
He's mentioned it before. I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I want to go back and do it. But then
Yeah.
I mean, the band that you guys have at the church, man, it's an awesome band. You
Yeah.
guys have amazing musicians.
We can always use more,
When you were did you ever play in gigs like at
Yeah.
a point that music shape in some way somehow who you are?
Yeah, well, that was one of the things that I feel like God took from me because, He gave me the choice to say yes and no, right? And I believe that I made the right choices because I really did want to be in a band too. Like I had these like the things that I wanted to do were very ego driven.
Yeah.
And I know that if I continued on in that path, it would have been bad for me. And so fast forwarding a little bit, I was playing with some friends, and I'm still friends with these guys today, like my good buddies, and we were like, hey, we're gonna start this band, and we were playing, and then I remember the last like rehearsal I did was like kind of around the same time I started working at Sandals.
Okay.
Right.
How old were you?
Gosh, I was like 24.
Okay.
Yeah, 24. I don't know. It could be 23, 24, whatever. Everyone was coming to the band. Like my best friend, like, hey, Kelly and Tim, they're all joining, and like we're gonna do this. And I was like, the Lord was like, you're not in this band no more. And I had to like, hey, they're coming in, but I'm out. And it was hard because they were bummed that they wanted me to be a part. And they ended up they did pretty well. They got to tour, they got to go places,
so
and
cool. How was that calling on you for you? How do you knew like God is calling me away from it? How did that came to you?
It was I had to make a decision. I couldn't say yes to like what God was calling me to if I was going to say yes to this band too, right? Like the commitment would have been like, well, you can't just take off now and go tour, right? You can't just go to Chicago and go sign a deal and all. I had to really like pray, like God, like guide my hand, and I almost didn't need to like pray. I knew like if it's not if this wasn't going to align with like with God's like desire for me, like why would it be a yes?
Yeah.
Like sometimes it's like you just know, like wisdom says no, right? God's given me wisdom, like. And I feel like you have that common sense that is set before you. Like, when there's a time where you pray for like, God, what is my direction in this? When there's good opportunities.
True.
But when it's starting a job doing I was doing graphic design work for the church. Like that was something I was trying to get into. And I was like, hey, God opened this door for me. Or go into a band where a lot of that will unravel, and I didn't think I was strong enough at that point to say yes to the band. I think I would have derailed.
That similar happened to me because towards the tail end of me playing music, I can just feel it in my heart. I felt this deep emptiness inside of me. I remember going and playing, and people will show up to the gigs, and it just felt empty. It felt sad to me to be there, and that's how I started to think like, I don't think this is for me. I don't think this is where I'm supposed to be. But yet, is the enemy pulling me back in? Is like going out there and another gig and another show, and then drinking and then the partying, and I'm like, man, this is definitely not what it was for me. And it wasn't until I started to really try to build my relationship with him when I learned that this is how he talks to me. This is how he communicates with us. We don't hear him as audibly the way we're doing right now, but man, his voice is deeper than this once you really open up to hear him.
Well, I mean, and just even getting into that, like, God speaks to you through His Word. If you're in His Scripture, you'll know. But I've had two moments where I'm like, that was an audible, like, oh shoot, and like we can talk about that later. But I was just like, I've heard that was.
Let's talk about it right now. Let's talk about it right now, man.
It was just, like there was a moment when me and my wife. This story's going all over the place. You're like, we want to talk about business, but.
This podcast is for him.
This
man,
is good.
So
I'm good.
He's leading the conversation.
I like talking. I'll talk all day.
This
would be part 2 of 7 shows.
There you go.
But I remember when me and my wife were trying to buy a house in like 2010, was it? 2000, whatever it was. And it was just so hard to find a house. At that point, we had a certain price. We're like, this is what we can do. And then we had like the area we wanted to be in, and then there was always no. And so there was a spot that it felt like if we move there, that's going to be not where we want to be, but we can get in. And I remember being at the house. It was a nice house, whatever. But I just remember being in there. I asked the real estate agent. I was like, so what's next? Is this when is this our house? He's like, well, it's pretty much yours. Like, we're going to be entering into escrow. And I was like, okay. And I just didn't feel right there. I was like, I don't know if this is our house.
Okay.
Like, I felt that my wife wasn't with me. I remember I think she had a class. She was doing school at the same time. So I remember I had to go sign something, an inspection or whatever. And I remember getting onto the freeway, onto the 60 freeway, and I was driving, and I was like, Lord, I don't know, man, if this is my house.
You just didn't feel it.
Didn't know. And I just felt like, I just remember praying as I was driving on the 60 and just heard, that's not your house. You didn't put this in front of me. I was just like goosebumps, right?
You feel them.
Yeah, and I was just like, and it felt sick. And I was like, oh my gosh, because my wife just wanted to move. Like at that point, we moved back in. We were staying at my mom's for a bit because we were trying to find our house and save money and whatever. And she was like, we got to go. It's time to go, right?
I got you.
And I just broke her heart. I said, hey, babe, like, you got to listen. And the Lord just confirmed, like, audibly in the car that that's not our house. And she was sad, and we lost, some money on it because we had to back out. There was, penalty or whatever.
Yeah.
But I want to be blessed. I want to do what is like affirmed by Him, and it all worked out. Like we look back, we're like, man, I'm so glad we listened to what the Lord said. We found a place that made way more sense for our life, where we were, location, and it was under what our budget was. Like it was just like. Better. Oh man, people are still like, when I tell people like how much we bought our first house for, they're like, that's so crazy. I'm like, that was the Lord, man, because He directed my wife to the house. Anyway, it was one of those things where you're just like, you gotta, being able to discern, his voice. And then the second time was with my second son. Like, okay, and this is probably where I probably gonna cry. I don't want to cry. So there was the hospital called, and they have like I don't know, I'm gonna probably say the terms wrong, but it's like the genetic counselor called and said, hey,
Okay.
we found some markers. We have some concerns. It could be Down syndrome. It could be a heart defect, and we're like, okay, so let's go in. And you're sitting in the office, it's like probably the size of this room. And she said, hey, so there's a few things that we can do. The first option is we could terminate the pregnancy. And I'm like, no, we're not doing that,
No.
And they said, okay, well, the next thing we can do, there's another test we can do. But if we do it, there's a chance we can cause more harm, but we would be able to determine like what is going on. And I was just like just processing like what she's saying. My wife's kind of like crying. She's kind of just not like bawling, but trembling. And I was just heard, your son's fine. And so I stopped her. I said, hey, like, I get we have to be here and we have to like, sign papers and stuff, but none of those are options. The Lord just told me like, our son's fine. And she was like, okay. Like she didn't know what to say, but that's what I said. My wife just kind of looked at me and I was like, we're good. Baby's going to be fine, and he's 12 and a half right now. He's doing fine.
Wow.
And when we talked about it that night, just like, that was just crazy. And, she was, again, I remember we were just laying in bed talking and she was like, what, like, just how do you know? I was like, babe, it was like the Lord passed the olive branch to me, that symbol of peace.
Yeah.
And we named him Oliver because of that. And, and when he was born, perfect.
Wow, brother.
Yeah, and so those two times still, they just stick with me. Like, man, it's so important to, just be aware of the Lord's voice. And it's not always going to be audible,
Yeah.
It's scary. It's like, and so I think that's what people are looking for. They're looking for like, I don't hear his voice. I'm like, well, his voice is available to you every day. Every day. Like, are you seeking his voice? And because that's the question I would ask folks. And like, because I think we're always looking for that, like this, don't you do that, It's like,
that's not what you need to turn right.
But yeah, so I feel going back to like just direction and everything, I just feel like I want to, and then like, I feel like that was my first, like, what am I going to do with my life? This is what the Lord has given me, this opportunity. I'm not going to turn my back on him right now.
So at this time, obviously, you're not a pastor yet.
No. That didn't come till 2022.
This is something that I've been asking myself, and I had this conversation with you. It's been in my heart to try to get closer to him and do more work for him. But to me, and you said, this is the way that I'm trying to do it with this platform.
Yeah.
And I get an opportunity to invite people and talk about him.
Yeah.
And maybe it's this way that he needs me to do. The platform that he's creating is like this.
Yeah.
But then I've had it in my heart. It's like, well, what if I do become a pastor?
Yeah.
What if I become an evangelist? What if I just walk away from all this business?
Yeah.
And I just dedicate my life to him? And that is something that I really want to know and then ask you this question because you did that.
Yeah.
You were in the same crossroads and you did it.
Well, mine was different though, because I mean, I started, as just a designer at church, and that was my role. I was working at church, but I was doing design and I was doing video stuff and doing audio visual stuff. So all the things that I was doing, I started like, oh, I can do that. I can do that. I can do that. Here's all the things I can do. And then you kind of build a team and you bring volunteers in and you train and then it just becomes different. You start to like, oh, I'm no longer the guy who's doing it. Now I'm the guy who's overseeing it. Now I'm finding other people to help out. And yeah, anyway, so I kind of grew in that. But through my years of doing that role, like, you're also doing ministry. So they converge, like the idea of like, I'm doing these things, right? I'm making, this look good and whatever. And then, but I'm also dealing with volunteers and they have, problems or they're going through life stuff. And so you start ministering to them. Like the call to ministry was beyond me doing like this, and it started to be like this with folks, right? So I started to like see like how God was using me, not with like my talents in like, design, creativity, yada, yada, yada. Like he gifted me, just have ability just to care for people, like, I think we're all supposed to care for each other, but I
Right.
feel like he called me to that. Like, I was like, man, the calling was like real evident, and it was, affirmed by just other pastors and ministers at church, and they were like, this is where we see you going. And it was hard because I do have a little bit of, I still love the creative stuff, and there was a little tension in that, and I had to pray about, like, God, what's my next step? And so, so through all that time, I have different roles where I, oversaw this or stepped into a different like area of creativity, and then 2021 maybe, I stepped into a pastoral cohort we had, like just a bunch of guys that were like, hey, we see this in you, like let's go through 2 years and training and like kind of like schooling, and we'll see where you are on the other side of this. And so yeah, at the end of 2020, sorry, at the end of 2023 is when I got ordained. So yeah, and so that's how I stepped into the pastorship. But during that time, so early 2020, actually ended 2019, my wife has always been the entrepreneur spirit, like always trying to do something. She's started so many different businesses for the sake of not starting a business, but trying something. Like, and I'll save her stories. Like, you should have her because she's really great. She'd be an incredible like business.
Okay.
She's got a business master's degree. Like, she's like, I always call you the master of business. But she's got it, and I'm just there to support her and help her. But like, she just felt like a calling to make people happy, So she started making ice cream at home, like her own ingredients in a, like, no lie, not even in an ice cream maker, like glass bowl, metal bowl, all the different type of bowls we had.
Okay.
And she just mixing stuff up, like, oh, I'm gonna pull lavender from our garden and put it with chocolate. Yeah.
She mixed it.
She made this ice cream, and she would give it to people, like friends, or like, hey, made some ice cream. Let us know how you feel. And they're like, this is so good. Like, and we were just praying, like, all right, God, what are we gonna do with this? And then COVID happened, and we were just kind of driving around, not really trying to like open a business, but like, it's just, there's nothing going on. So you drive the city. It was like ghost town everywhere. And there was like a local coffee shop that shut down for whatever reason. And they had a location at the Riverside Food Lab. It was like a walk-up like spot at the downtown. And she just, out of curiosity, said, oh, hey, is anyone gonna be taking over this spot? And they're like, yeah, actually, well, yeah, someone's already gonna take over. Like, she was like, oh, but they were like, oh, why? And she's like, oh, I have an ice cream, little ice cream business. And she just said that, and I was like, we don't really have an ice cream business. She's like, we could though. I'm like, that's crazy, babe. That's just how she is, right? She's a curious kitten, man. She's just asking questions. And so, anyways, they, like, a couple months later, they text us or called us, and we're like, hey, we love your idea that you guys have. We might have a space in Redlands. Are you interested? And we're like, yeah. She just said yes because she was interested. She's just trying to find the process.
Yeah.
So she met the people, and anyways, what happened is, another place at the food lab, they were like, hey, they're actually leaving. Would you be interested in Riverside? We're like, let's look at it. Let's see. And so
you lived in Riverside at this
yeah, so yeah,
time.
I'm Riverside. I'm born and raised, bro.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
Okay.
Like, I was here when it was like 714.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've seen 714, I've seen 909 and 951. So yeah, I got all the area codes.
All right.
So anywho, so we went back and we checked out the space, and like, what do you think, babe? And we were just, this is crazy. I don't even know how do we make ice cream from a bowl to a machine, right? And so we just prayed about it, like, God, like, if this is something we should step into. And so we prayed and like, just kind of like, all right, God, what's next? And so opportunities kept coming up, and like offers, and we met people, and just ultimately, like, fast forwarded, we feel like, all right, we're gonna do this. And I'm like, I'm working full time, like, I'm at the church, like, my role's pretty significant because at that point I was in the operations side of things for the Palm Avenue, and she was a director in the role she was in, and so how do we do this? Because we're not going to quit. We can't quit our jobs. Like, that was not in the question. And so she's like, we can hire a team, and I can do all the other stuff from home, like, the business side of it, the accounting, the scheduling,
Right.
all the stuff
The
that I'm like, I don't know how to do it.
operations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just the muscle and the creative. I was the
like
one
that.
who's like, hey,
I
go buy
like that.
sugar, go buy this, So I would do that. But so we had like a crazy deadline. Can you guys open in like 2 months? I'm like, can we? And so we measured everything to get the right equipment in there. Like, we barely made it. We barely
Really?
made it with all the equipment that had to be in there because you only had a certain amount of space. And I was like, how are we going to do this? And so one of the things that I learned from just being at the church, one of the things that Sandals has done like incredibly well is we have this thing called church adoption, where there might be
Okay.
a church that has been around for a long time, and maybe they just weren't growing or whatever the case could be, and they would connect with us like, hey, we don't want this building to go to the state or anything like that. We would love to be a Sandals, and so we don't call them church mergers because that's not what it's in the
Okay.
church. Like the
Okay.
family of God, we adopt, and so we've like Palm Avenue was another church. It was Palm Baptist for like 70 years, right?
Okay.
And so in 2016, 2017, they began that conversation, and all the people there were like, yes, we want to be a Sandals, and so all those people are still at Palm. They're still serving. They're a part. It's like a beautiful image of
Is
like,
that how Sandals was blessed to grow to 14 different campuses
yeah.
in one way?
Yeah, most of it was through like older like congregations that like, hey, they want to they would still want the church to move forward, right? And so it was called the Rogo Foundation, they would call it, real with real with thyself, God and others. This is Rogo.
Okay.
It was just, so that was the foundation, and so they would just connect with these other churches, and they would say, hey, we want to be a Sandals, so we would merge if the location made sense, because we don't need like 20 campuses in Riverside, right? But
Right.
like if there was like a area like Reno Valley or San Bernardino, like that makes sense. Like, okay, we'll connect, right?
So what attracted these other churches to become a Sandals church? How did that happen?
It happened. The first one happened. Oh man, I think in 2015, 2014. There was a church out in Mentone, a little near Redlands.
Okay.
And some of their staff were coming to an evening service, and they were like, "We'd love to be a Sandals," and we're like, okay, well, how do we do that? Like we're not like a franchise, They were just like, oh, what would it look like for us to become a Sandals church? Because at that point we just had our Hunter Park location, and we had a Woodcrest location that was a setup tear down at a school.
Okay.
And so we were like, I don't know. And so they just looked into it, like, what does that look like? And so that was like the first like process of us like doing that. I may have missed a few like points, but essentially that's what it was. That first one kicked it off was like, hey, what does that look like? But
how long has Sandals been around? I'm new to the church.
oh yeah,
yeah.
97.
Since 1997.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you've been with the church ever since?
90. I started going in, actually I first attended in 99.
Okay.
In 99, I was kind of off and on in my little punk rock stage of like, I'm gonna go, I'm not gonna go. But yeah, but I've been there like consistently since 2001. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, man.
So you've seen this growth from the church, for the church.
It was wild. I've seen crazy things. I'm like going back, you're like, oh my gosh, I remember that. But I wanted to go back to my point.
Yes.
Sorry, but it's
No.
one of the
sorry.
things that I
It's just
learned.
good.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and we can get back to it. But what I learned from some of the times we've like merged, like you have a very small budget, and like we didn't have a big budget starting the ice cream shop. We had very little dollars, and so I was like, we don't have to build anything. What we'll do, we'll wrap it. We can do a wrap, like a vinyl like wrap around the front of because they had this tile and this other artwork that we weren't going to use. I go, that's how we did it like at Sandals when we first moved into a spot, because you really don't know how is everything going to land.
Right.
So you're very like conscious like and steward well, like, hey, we only have X amount of dollars. How do we steward well what God has given us, right? And so we had a very like, I think we had a good process of like, how do we make it look, like us, but like not be fully committed, because things might move. Like if God grows this, like we don't want to like, oh, we put all these dollars into this thing. So it was kind of like, we can put like a little thing on the front of it, and then peel it off. It's not going to kill our budget, right? And so that's what we did at Mixie's. I was like, we can do that. We can just wrap this, we'll we're not going to put a new light up there. We'll just take that cover off, and we'll have one that's, we can have one with our logo put on there. We'll just use the same shape. I was like, I can make that shape work, have it fabricated. And so I was like, how can we save money with what's there?
Okay.
And so I was just, because what I didn't want to do is like act like we were having more dollars in our pocket than we did. We were very like trying to be frugal, and at the same time we don't want to, we're already borrowing, to start this. To
start the ice cream shop that you now have.
We're like, okay, yeah. And so like we're like, how do we do this? How do we make this happen in like this time? And in fact, I called friends. I knew the person who did the wrap. I had my buddy Mark. He helped make he put a wall up, a magnetic wall and everything. And so people, we'll help you out. We'll help, we'll make this happen.
It's like when church comes together.
You hit your friends
together.
up. Yeah. And so I'm like, through the years, I've made so many different like friends and connections. Like, I know a plumber, I know electricians, I know this guy, I know this guy.
Right.
And so, hey, can you help me out? Here's what it looks like. And, some people are like, I'll just help you out. And some people are like, I'll give you a deal. And like, whatever you can do, man, And so networking is so important, like in everything that you're doing, right? Like just in life, it's important to network.
Sometimes people don't understand the importance of networking.
But I think it's important for that to be authentic too, because I can tell when
just
someone
to take
wants
advantage of it.
Yeah, because sometimes I just feel like you just
too.
want me to help you out. Like I haven't heard from you in a long time, And so
calling me,
everyone has their own feelings about stuff like that. I always want it to have. There has to be some kind of relational equity, for me to feel safe with somebody, and like if I'm going to ask somebody to, hey, can you help me out? It's because like, hey, I want this to be a mutually beneficial thing, and like, how can, and even ask like, hey, how does this work for you? And sometimes that they can make that call. They can go, oh, here, give me X amount, or bro, I got you. Like, I love you, man. Like, just give me some free ice cream, whatever.
I remember I had a conversation with an old partner of mine, because to me, for the business is where we sat today, because I've always exposed myself. First of all, it's not because it's because God brought me where we are today. This is God's business.
Yeah.
But I've always been the first one to give to somebody else without expecting anything in return.
Yeah.
And a lot of these times I've gotten burned. But to me, it's like, this is the whole point about being in business, is you have to take a risk. And what a better risk than helping somebody else?
Yeah.
And if that person doesn't come and return the favor, then it's not going to happen, but that's okay.
Yeah.
But Leto is where we sat today, from having different partnerships, from having different networking opportunities. Everybody that I show you on the wall, is we've all met at some point in our life without expecting to do business.
Yeah.
But a true, genuine relationship started.
Yeah.
And that is when I realized, like, wait, they're not asking me, and they're offering something.
Yeah.
And then it's like, let me offer something. And then they don't even ask me, and they return the favor. That's how you know, to me, like, that's how I know it's a true partnership.
Yeah.
It's somebody who first wants to build a friendship, a relationship.
Yeah.
And then we understand, I can add value with this. If you implement this in your business, that'll help you out.
Yeah.
Try it out. And then they told me, Tony, if you do this, the most value that I've always gotten is from people that offer something without expecting something in return. But it's the same thing as like, I have to do these things first.
Yeah.
And I remember this one time, it's like, well, dude, you always give so much, and you get the short end of the stick a lot of the times. What do you keep on doing? And I'm like, you gotta take the risk, man.
Yeah.
And if you don't take the risk, you don't know if something could happen. It could happen, it may not happen. And how is the only way that you're going to find out? Is you gotta expose yourself to it. That's all it is.
Yeah, and it takes a certain kind of person, because risk is hard, especially like when you're like, this could go bad, And so that's why I'm grateful for my wife, because she's
calculator of risk.
She is, man. And so we made it happen, man. We hit the deadline and we opened, and she figured out the like science of making it bigger, the ice cream. Like,
really?
How do you make it into the small bowl? Like, I'm sure it's not that hard to figure out.
No,
but yeah, because the machine is different. It's like a whole different process. Like, she took a whole class, an ice cream making class.
Oh wow!
On like how do you take it from like making it at home?
I gotta have your wife in the
yeah. That's the one thing I'm sad about. Is like I don't have the ice cream anymore like that we would, because it was, man.
She doesn't make it at home anymore just for you guys?
The boys were just talking about that. They're like, man, I wish Mom would make like some of the ice cream again.
What do you think it is? She kind of just...
Well, I think it's just time. It's like, oh yeah, you're right. She should. I'll be like, hey, babe, make some.
I want to try it, but I never got the chance to try it.
I mean, the business is still there. I don't know how it is.
I'm pretty sure it's great.
Yeah, I'm sure it's
still
great.
There,
I don't,
great.
The people they bought it. They took over. That's another part of the story we'll get to. I'm sure we sold our recipes too, which is but like that was part of the deal. And so, but she can still make him at home. We have the rights to make him at home. So,
come on. And she can make new recipes too.
Yeah. It was fun. It was a fun time to like, jump in there and be there sometimes. But that I think we had it for a little over 2 years, and then that was the hard part, was deciding, do we continue to do this? Do we sell it? Do we open a second? We were thinking about opening a second.
So the business was bringing in money at that point.
Yeah, it was doing okay.
So you went from zero to figuring out how to. You don't have to give me the exact numbers.
Yeah.
When your wife says, "I have an ice cream shop," I don't have one, but I'm gonna have one.
Yeah.
To the point, I'm like, oh wow, there's actually revenue coming in.
Yeah.
And that's how every business is. You have an idea.
Yeah.
You work at it backwards. You identify. You visualize. You structure. You execute, and you remain intentional until it comes to fruition.
Yeah.
In its highest cash flow of the business, how much was it coming in? Would you say that you remember?
I couldn't answer. My
she was the one running the numbers.
Yeah, she's the number one.
What's her name?
Burgundy.
Burgundy. We're gonna have to have you in this church soon to talk these numbers.
But I'll tell you this. Like, I mean, we as business owners, you don't really take a paycheck, right? At first,
Yeah.
And so like monthly, we weren't like making a lot of money. We made a little money. But what we were doing, we were trying to pay off our loans,
enough to
pay our employees,
and
then have a little bit saved for opportunity that may have arisen with the business, right? And so we wanted to be wise with it, because at the same time, we still had our full-time jobs, right? None of us quit. Yeah, we didn't quit. There was a point where during the summer, she didn't work through her contract, and so she would go down there and work during the day and whatever. But I was never like, I went one time to open the store. I didn't even know how to turn the register on. I was like, how do you do this? And I just gave out ice cream to like some people. And I was like, it's so early. Why do you want ice cream anyways? It's 10 o'clock, But we would have to open at a certain time.
Jay, why are you giving away the ice cream?
And my wife laughed. She's like, you didn't even use the ice cream scoop. You used the cookie dough scooper. I was like, hey, I got it in the cone.
It's in the cup.
So,
it's in the cone.
I got it. They got it. They're happy. But
that's hilarious.
Yeah, it was, but it was cool. It was.
Do you miss that era? You miss that season?
I miss people telling me, "Oh man, it was so good. We went down there and your ice cream was so good." And I always point it back to my wife. I'm like, this is all her. Like every single thing that you enjoyed was because she had like this gifting that the Lord gave her, and that's what she did. And she did that out of obedience, because she said, God put it on her heart to make people happy, and it was making people happy. And so I do miss it, but what was starting to happen was like I said, we were in that crossroads. Do we open another or do we close? We need to hire an assistant manager, because it was becoming so much where my busiest day of the week is Thursdays. That's the last day of it's like my Friday at church, right? We have Fridays and Saturdays kind of off. Usually, sometimes, I'm not really off. There's something happening. But you'd get out of work about 6-ish, and then I'd have to go downtown. Oh, I got to get sugar, eggs, butter, stuff that we couldn't order online because it would just kill you. If you bought that and shipped it online, it's going to kill your budget. So we would just have to go to Smart and Final. So I'd go down there, buy all those different, those certain items.
Right.
Oh, we ran out of spoons. Let's get spoons, whatever. And then go and try to find parking on a Thursday night in Riverside. If you know about Riverside, dude, forget about it, man. You're not parking anywhere. Yeah. And then the way the food lab was set up, they didn't have a great way for people who were business owners there to park. They didn't have owner parking or anything, and so you were like God bless if he opens up a spot for you to sit up close, right? I was like, oh, I'm gonna get in, I'm gonna unload really quick, right? And so it was hard. So I sometimes I'd get a parking spot on the 3rd level, and the guy's like, you have to pay me, because they would make you pay. I think you have to pay now, but before it used to be free to park in that thing. But Riverside's trying to pull some Orange County stuff now, which I get it.
Man, Riverside's growing, man. They got a lot of projects coming out.
Yeah, but I was like, I'm only going to be unloading for X amount of time. You can't make me, pay. And so I was always like, come on, guys, I'll give you a cookie.
We should tell Steven Robillard that story.
Tell hey, Steve, well, that's not Ward 3, but he can still vote on it, bro. But yeah, so it was just hard. It would just take forever. It was stressful. And then you'd go down to, load everything up and then check on your employees and make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. Because sometimes they were, it was we had 50-50. We had some really great employees, I actually thought our high school kids were the best employees.
Really?
Oh man, those kids want to work. They want money. They're like,
They want money.
I like money.
Yeah.
I'd like to make more money. You know, and they were like, let's do it. And they're friendly and they're just happy that they're hired.
That's awesome.
Some of our like college age kids, they were a little harder. Like, I don't want to say all of them, but some of them are like, man, y'all have to work too. And they're like, oh, but I feel like I'm watching my show, you know? Like, that's just how it was. So there was like, that was another thing to deal with. Like, man, employees is hard. Like dealing with
employees. Yeah, that's
you know, because my dream, my wife's dream, that's not their dream necessarily, right?
Yeah, it's just a paycheck for them.
It's just a paycheck, and you know that's hard for someone to understand that. And so, you know, in all businesses, it's really important. Like hire the right people, and I'm not expecting them to have that same dream, right? But having like the work ethic is so important, because work ethic will take you beyond like that first job, right? Like wherever you work, you know, work unto the Lord, right? Like Colossians 3:23, that's very important to me. Like every job that we do, like we should be honorable in that, right? Yeah. Everything that I approach, I want it to be, I don't want anyone to ever go like, dude, he slacked off when he did that, right? So no matter what you do, like my encouragement to people, if you work hard, like, and this is no duh, right? Yeah. Your bosses, the people in charge will see that. It'll be recognized. Like, you know, they can't take that away from you. No one can take your work ethic away from you. Because I just feel like, man, as someone who works hard, I'm going to notice that. I don't care, you know, on my side of things, I don't care what your certificate says. I don't care what college you went to. If you work hard and you honor like what we're doing, let's go, bro. Let's talk about that.
And that shows the type of person that you're working with, the type of person that you were raised to be. Mm-hmm. You know, if you want to get a little bit deeper when it comes to that, it all starts on how we raise our kids. Because then our kids are going to be the ones that they'll be the workforce. They'll carry on that ethic. Yeah. And if you have that strong presence of somebody who's there to respect, first of all, what others are doing. Yeah. And then you'll then learn to respect what you're supposed to do. Yeah. And then you start to figure out who you are, how you become a part of this society. Yeah. And that becomes part of figuring it out who you are. Yeah. And to me, that was part of my process. Remember earlier I said, doctor said I was supposed to be dead at the age of 12. But then the music helped me out a lot. But it wasn't until I came to God and I asked him, man, who am I? Mm-hmm. And we just had this series. I remember not last year at Palm. Yeah. It's like, you really want to know who you are? To me, Jesus showed me who I am. Yeah. To the point that I look at the guy in the camera. I do a lot of content, and I look at the guy in the camera or in the mirror. It's like, I like this version of myself. Yeah. I have learned to accept who I am. Yeah. And I've said this, I've learned to accept who I am because I have accepted the Lord. Jesus has shown me, like, dude, this is who I created you to be. Yeah. I'm like, dude, thank you. Like, I like this guy. Yeah. And then I look at the past, even just from talking to, just by me showing you how I named the company, man, I wish I was done a different thing. Yeah. I wish I would have gone a different route. But then once again, it's like, it's the process of understanding who has God created me to be, accepting that person to the point that now it's like, man, I honor who he has made me because I honor him, and I honor him. Therefore, I get to honor my wife. I get to honor my daughters. Yeah. It all comes full circle. Yeah. And now I'm able to work in the business ethically, honorably, and everything that I do. So now I got to make sure, bringing it back down, I got to show that to my daughters, 7 and 3-year-old. Yeah. You know, they're going to grow and they're going to be in the workforce. So I know that with the right, it's just like when you're building a business. Yeah. You have the right structure, it'll become sustainable. Yeah. And it'll be able to grow without you having to be there. But to me, it's that foundation for the business. Starts with him. I wish I had the Bible. Normally I have it here, but it all starts with God, with Jesus. And it's sad to know that there's a lot of people that don't accept him. Yeah. You know, and I say this because I was that guy. Yeah. I was the type of guy that for a long time I wouldn't want to go to church. I would fight to go to church. Why do I need to go to church? Yeah. I don't need to go there and listen to a man who's probably done worse things than I have. Yeah. And then I had all these thoughts in my head. So I'm like, wait, where are these thoughts coming from? It's like, well, that's the enemy. Yeah. But bringing it back down to the church, the tithing. And I've had a hard time to tithe, to give away in the past. And now it's like, last year we had a rough year within Leto. Yeah. It was a rough year. But every chance I had, I'm like, you know what, let me donate. Mm-hmm. Whether it was to home, or whether it was to people outside, it's just to find that opportunity to give to somebody when I know I didn't have the money, but I'm like, you know what, I did it. And I can see how this year things are changing already. Mm. And that for somebody out there that has a hard time to come to church, has a hard time to build a relationship with God. And then there's always somebody who criticizes, man, what are you going to give him money? What are you going to give him money? From your seat, being there within the church, I've become that person that I whenever I get the chance, I'm giving to the church, to Palm Avenue. I really appreciate it. But how do you help somebody else see it differently, with a different perspective? You being within the church, everything that the church does for a lot of people, how the church came to help you when your dad passed away. How do you help somebody try to just, not to understand it, but just see it with a different lens?
I don't know if it's about seeing it. I really feel like money is the one thing that I think people are most passionate about. Like, because it's like, oh, you're taking something from me, and that's hard. And here's the thing, I understand it. I understand it, especially right now. Things are really tight for people, and every time, every Sunday we take offering. That's we have bills to pay as a church. We have bills to pay, but a lot of our budget goes to helping people. Like, there's a lot of things that we do, like benevolence. We care for people. There's people that they may have a specific need, and like, let me take care of that for you. It's trusting your leadership too, right? Like, I would say a majority of folks who are part of the church community understand that.
Right.
I think it's for the folks that might be newer to church. Like, they just don't understand the ordinance of, like, why do I give? And I think once you get it, you understand, like, what you're a part of, because what we're being invited in to the work that God's doing. And here's the thing, like, the reality is it's all God's. Like, if you understand that everything you have, it's already the Lord's. It's a act of us being obedient, right? And I think once you get that, I think the Lord will bless you. And I'm not saying it, and I'm not going to say in a be rolling Benzes and stuff. And some people do. Like, hey, I get it. Like, blessing is different for some folks. Sometimes blessing is like, man, I got all my needs taken care of. Another crazy story I have about that is, and I have a note. I'll tell you the story. When I was like 23, 24, young dude, like, I was trying to get into just honoring God with everything, with my finances. So that was a real challenge for me. And I still remember we were doing service at CBU back in the day. We used to rent the gym there, the old gym, and we had service in there. And I just remember like feeling like convicted of, like, man, look all the dumb crap that I've bought. Like, just Target, going by DVDs and all this stuff. I'm like, man, why do I have all these? Why do I have all these movies that I don't need to watch, right? And I would spend money on so many dumb things, and I just felt that conviction, and just knowing, like, what we were able to do as a church. Like, at that point, a young church at that time, but it was cool. Like, man, God was using this group of people to bless others, right? To do kingdom work. And I was like, man, I want to be a part of that. How do I do that? And I just felt like I had to give a certain amount of dollars. I think it was like $200, right? Okay. I was trying to make up, for whatever. So that's the number that I feel like the Lord gave me at that moment. Heart. But in that time, I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna pay my car payment, And that's what we don't want people to make dumb decisions that are going to. Right. But that also comes with planning, right? Like, planning well with what you have, right? Giving God your first crops, right? Like, that's what that means.
Yes.
To plan well. I talked about that last weekend. Is just want to be intentional with being generous, right? True. And so you should plan well. Like, you don't give God your leftovers. Like, okay, what do I got left? I got, like, here, let me donate an old couch to the church, or let me give you, like, I got 75 cents, right? Give God your first, right? That's what that's when you plan well, that's honoring, right?
That's true.
Like, that's how we should approach it when we are taking care of God's kingdom, man.
Okay.
But what I did, I was I wrote my check, my little checkbook back then, and I put in the offering. I was like, all right, well, I'm testing you, God. Let's see what's going to happen, right? And I remember that night, like, my friends were like, hey, we're all going to go to Red Robin and whatever and eat burgers. And I'm like, I have no money. I can't spend any money right now. Like, I'm tapped out. And they're like, they have, like, all you can eat fries, man. Just eat fries. And so I said, okay.
Just
and then,
fries.
Yeah. And so I had to move my car that night. For whatever reason, I remember they were, like, repaving the parking lot. And they were like, everybody, don't park here. And so I had to move my car. So I moved my car, by some dorms over at CBU. No one saw me. Like, I just left. Went out with my friends, whatever. Came back. It was probably like 11 o'clock at night or whatever. Go to my car. And in my car, like in the window, there was like an envelope shoved in there. And I was like, what's that? I was like, oh shoot, did I get invited to some party? Like, I don't know what's going
I got
on.
the VIP.
Yeah. And then so I opened it up and there was a note and it said, I'm quoting because I don't remember what it said verbatim, but it essentially said, hey Justin, this is for you. God put it on my heart to give this to you. He says that you need it. God sees you. That was it. Well, I still have that note. It's on my desk. I'll take a picture and I'll send it to you. You can put it in the video.
Please, I can put it on the video.
Yeah. And it was $50 more than my car payment.
So you had just tied.
I just tithed, man.
$200.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then your friends hit you up to go to
Yeah.
Red Robin. I can't go, guys.
Can't go.
Eat fries.
Eat fries.
Eat fries. Then you go move the car and there's an envelope in there.
Yeah. No, there was no name. It was cash, which I'm like, who would put that much cash in an envelope and just leave it on a car, right? But I didn't tell nobody, or I parked in a weird spot. And nobody knew what I did. Like, nobody knew my situation. I didn't tell anybody, like, oh, this is going to be hard. And so I was just like, all right, Lord. And I still don't know who did that. I don't know who gave me that. I don't want to know. But I kept that note because it blessed me. I remember I told my mom, and she was just like, oh, my mom was just like, my mom has the most faith of anybody I know. Like, everything is like, all right, well, the Lord will take care of it. Like, that's her faith. Yeah. And I've seen it, like, play out every time. I'm like, man, I want that faith. And I think that was the starting of that faith for me, to really like just trust, like, God will take care of it.
And he really does.
He does, man. I'm telling you,
man.
In every situation, and I'm not just talking financially, just any situation that requires like trust, I try to go all in, man, because God always takes care of it. And I'm not talking about, like, again, when I talk about blessing, it's not always financially.
No,
man.
Absolutely not. It's the greatest blessing to me is the peace that he gave me.
Bro, yes.
Dude, it's a
yeah.
Everything around me last year was a very heavy year. Financially within the company, personally within my wife. I mean, you will see my life from the outside looking in. It's like, how are you not going nuts and pulling your hair and going crazy?
Yeah.
But I've never felt the peace that I have felt in this past 18 months.
Yeah.
That there's no way to describe it. Then, man, my Lord is awesome, man. This guy, Jesus Christ, because the peace that I have is, I don't know how this is going to happen, but I already know it's okay.
Yeah.
And the peace that I have, and I talk to my friends, and I will tell them a little bit about what I'm going through. It's like, how are you not going crazy? I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Like, you have no idea the peace that I have, and I know it's going to be okay. And that to me is financial blessings. Obviously, we all need them, you know. But when you get the blessing of knowing who God really is, not just to say I have faith, but to say this, I know him. I am walking with him. Is you're walking, and the world could be going down. Yeah. But you get a peace that, what's the worst that can happen? Yeah. The worst that can happen is the biggest blessing. Yeah. He takes this business away. That's the biggest blessing. That is not the worst. Yeah. And when you start to understand who he really is, blessings is not, money is not a blessing. Yeah. Money is an opportunity that we get to be able to move forward financially. Yeah. But the biggest blessing is getting his peace. Yeah. That is the way I can describe it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's when you can have the, I guess the mindset of knowing, like, this is already the Lord's, and just, trust him with it. When money doesn't have a control on you, that's the blessed position to be in, man. Because having money is not bad. That's
no, it's not. Let's not make it an enemy. No.
Going back to something you were saying in the beginning, like, oh man, like, I want to step into the ministry. We're all in ministry, man. Some of us are vocational. Like, I'm in vocational ministry, right? Okay. We need people, like, in the workforce too. Like, you are going to have a different reach, like, doing what you do, and I'm not saying don't pursue it, but I'm saying, like, think about like the position and the influence that you have in just what you do now. Like, God uses that, man. And like, you're seeing the fruit of that. I think a lot of folks might have this idea that, like, well, if I'm not, like, pastoring a church, or I'm not, working, every week towards Sunday, that I'm not, doing God's work. And I was like, that's not true. Like, God used fishermen, man. Like, who hung out with Jesus?
Yeah.
Just some blue collar dudes that were walking around, right? And like, he uses each and every one of us in our roles, man. Like, are you willing? That's the real question. Am I willing to serve God, like, in every role that I'm in? If I'm a teacher, I'm a doctor, I'm working at Starbucks, like, in every position, God can use you there.
Yeah.
He doesn't need you. Like, we need pastors. Like, we need people to do these things, but it doesn't mean everybody needs to do that. But at the same time, like, if that's a calling, you feel like, man, I feel like God put this calling on me, then let's pursue it. But I think you can still be used in, like, the role that you're in, you know, like, your like question isn't that unique. You know, there's a lot of folks that feel that same way, you know, and there's been some folks I'm like, I think you would do well. And there's others I'm like, you should stay in, like, you know, the sector you're in, because you have way more influence there. You'll lose it, because then guess what you're going to also be in? You're going to be in some of the meeting, like, I was in meeting all day yesterday, man, you know, like, and it's good because we're planning and we're, like, thinking, like, hey, what are we going to do, you know, and for Easter and things like that. Like, those are good things, but, like, you might lose a lot of the other opportunities that you have that God will use. Those are, like, opportunities God's put you in. Like, don't lose those. Like, he'll still use you. Like, you're not doing ministry, right? You're just doing it, like, as you're, you know, connecting with people through a business like lens, and that's still cool. Like, you need those folks, because if they're all inside the church, we need missionaries out everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Like, you need to be, like, in other spaces. You know,
and that is the part that I've gotten to see and to accept. Because to me, I've always said this is, I don't want to have to depend on a tithing to be able to talk about God. You know, I don't want to have to be in a position that people will think, oh, he's doing it just for the money or for our religion. It's like, because obviously, like we just talked about it, the churches need the funds to be able to do all the things that they do. So to me, it's like, how do I do this without having to need the money to come from it to sustain my life? And he's done it. He's provided a business that is providing for all of my expenses. Now is what you just said. It's like, you just gotta do the work. And then now it's like, I realized, I'm like, wait a second, I'm in the position that I've been wanting to be. I don't need the money to come from people to help me talk about God, because now all I gotta do is, well, it's this. Look at what we've been, majority of this podcast, we've been talking about God. But to me, it's like, I enjoy doing these things. And this is what I'm starting to realize, is like, the platform is there already. I can come in and talk about them, and I'm pretty sure there'll be conversations that people will not agree. But that is okay.
That's okay.
As long as people, as long as I understand that when I'm ready to be vocal with somebody else to talk about God, and if they don't accept it, I need to be okay with them telling me no and giving me that pushback. And it's not a fight, but in mine, all I'm doing is like, well, you may not agree, and that's fine, but guess what I did? I just planted the seed.
And sometimes you might even have the better, like, opportunity than myself, because I'm already coming in with the back. Oh, Pastor Justin, like,
pass.
There's already like, oh shoot, and they'll be like, oh sorry,
like, I'm sorry, Pastor.
Like, hey, like,
I get you.
It's funny. So I have some friends, and they'll be like, oh man, hey, sorry, dude, I cussed today, and we're like, that's all right, man. Like, they got to bring up all their issues. I'm like, it's so funny. I'm like, oh man, it's all good, man. I may have cussed yesterday too. You know, like, I think people, like, and it's good. I think it's an honor to be, you know, viewed a certain way, but I never want anyone to freak out, you know. And so with you have a different, like, your angle is, I'm just a regular guy, you know. I run a business and I love Jesus, and let me tell you about, like, how those things converge. And I think that's a beautiful thing, and God uses that, you know. And just as God uses me in just a different way, you know. And I think a majority of my impact will probably happen on Sundays when I connect with folks, you know. But I want those opportunities. I'm like, Lord, send someone. I was at Home Depot today. I'm like, all right, who am I gonna be? Can I talk to somebody? Because someone always talks to me at Home Depot, man. And like, and then sometimes they find out, like, oh, so what are you doing? And, like, sometimes I'll go during the week because we need to buy something for church, right? Like, oh, we gotta, you know, fix a fence or whatever. And they're like, you're in here. You've been in here 3 times this week, you know. I'm like, I know. Like, I'm at the church and I forgot something. They're like, oh, what are you doing at the church? And I tell them, they're like, oh, okay. And I was like, yeah, you know, I always put an invite out, or, like, let them know, like, yeah, I'd love to see you, like, Sunday night, you know, give them all the time.
I just invited my brother earlier today. I've invited some of my friends. I love how I went from being the guy that I don't want to go to church. I don't need to go, So now we're doing a small study group with Jesse.
Oh, yeah.
I went with my wife the other day with my daughter. So I'm like, I look at myself once again and I really like this guy that God's created. Like I never thought this was gonna be me.
Yeah.
From sexual immorality, from doing drugs, from playing late, from getting drunk, from getting stoned.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, whoa, like I look at who I used to be, but it doesn't define who I am.
Yeah.
And I was able to accept that the minute I came to God and I said, man, I'm ready. And I got the calling to be baptized. I was baptized 2 years ago at the house.
Yeah.
A good friend of mine, pastor, came from Texas, and I'm like, my life has changed in so many ways. The minute I surrender who I used to be and I let go of the need of this world and just focus more on the spiritual. And God has brought so many blessings that all of you guys that are out there, if you are still doubting that there is a God, there is a Jesus, the way I came to him, it wasn't through church. It was from simply having his calling to buy my first Bible, King James Version Bible. Don't get that one. Especially if English is your second language. Don't get a KJV.
That's a pro tip right there.
Man, don't get a KJV if it's your first Bible.
But to everybody who loves the KJV,
it's an awesome
it's all
book.
Good. It's great.
It's hard to understand. Thy word, I'm like, dude, give me simple English.
Yeah, I know.
But if you are feeling that calling in your belly and you don't know where that is coming from, just listen to it. Listen to that calling, because that is the voice of God, of Jesus Christ. Yeah. And all you need to do is be a curious kid, like you said earlier. Yeah. Just be curious about it to find out, well, what is this about? And to me, it came 9 months before my dad passed away. I got my first Bible, and after that, my dad told us he was diagnosed with cancer. When he transitioned to the next life, it was a crossroad where there was grief on both sides. Yeah. But one of them was with the hand of Christ, and the other one was on my own. Yeah. I'm glad I took his hand, because up to this day, it's not why you took my dad. It's like, thank you for taking my earthly father. Because now that you took my earthly father, my connection with my spiritual God, with my real father, is like, it's been amazing to this day. And for all of you that are out there, just come to a church and you'll understand that there is the community. Yeah. Because it is easier to go through this path when you have people, friends like you, and I call you a friend. Yeah. Because it's been awesome to know that you've been through this road and I've been through this road, and I think now more than ever, at the end of times when the tribulation is getting closer, a lot of us will hear his voice and they will come to him. And I think it's happening more and more, that more people are using their voice to talk to somebody else about Christ. I think it's been for too long that, just like they say, you don't talk politics, you don't talk religion. It's not religion. It's about a relationship with Christ. And if you know him, I invite you to be vocal. Yeah.
I was going to say, I think that's a part of the problem is we don't talk about those things. And those are the things that we should talk about. We should have an exchange of ideas. Like if we disagree on things politically, or I wouldn't even say disagree, like if we didn't see eye to eye on something, it's so important to talk about that, because what you do, you just silo yourself into like, well, I'm in this camp and you're in this camp, and we're also enemies now. Like, wait, why are we enemies, right? Like that's what happens. And the same thing is with religion. I think people do get, I think they get offended or like, oh, I don't want to hear about that, because we have made it something that we've deemed it. We shouldn't talk about those things. Like, no, we absolutely need to talk about these things, because it's like eternal. It's an eternal conversation. Now, I think it's very important to be, we need to be, compassionate with our words. Yeah. We need to be, not pushy. We're not salesmen. Yeah, no. And that's why I think, like, the relational side of having the equity with people, just to be friends, right? Jesus was friendly. We forget that. Like he hung out with people of all types, and it wasn't judgment, but when Jesus spoke, it was very like it was directives. Like you should stop doing that, and that's it. It wasn't like, if you don't, I'm going to judge you and you're going to go to hell. Yeah. You should stop. Jesus was very he was relational. He was friendly, but he stood his ground. Yeah. And so he was respected. So it's important for us to have those conversations, to be respectful, but to still carry the character of Jesus, right? Yeah. Like we should be about his business, right? But being peaceable in it, right? Yeah. And then now when I'm connecting with another believer, right? I can be more direct with you, because if you're maybe say you're actively engaging in activity, hey bro, I can hold you accountable, right?
Yeah.
That's what we need to do.
Yeah.
But like to someone who has yet to commit to following Jesus, I just need to minister well and be kind and live a life that's reflective of that. Like your life is so much is your testimony, right? And so like seeing how you're living your life and like what Jesus has done in your life, like the redemptive side of it, like it's important not to dwell on it, but to remember, hey, this is where I was. Like, and you shared that, which I think is really great, that you're like, hey, here's what I used to be doing. But the life I have now that God's given me has set me free. Yeah. Like, right? And like that's more powerful almost than going to church for some folks, right? Yeah. But you gotta go to church. Love to see you. But be a part of a spiritual community, because that's gonna once like you have that kind of like, some people, they have this like great awakening, right? Like, what am I doing with my life? You know, and I believe that's the Lord. He's He's convicting you, like, you're called to something better. I didn't call you to that. I didn't create you to be like, you know, stoned out of your mind, right? Or to be engaging in things that way. I've called you to something greater, and He redeems our life, right? Yeah. Like, not for us to dwell on what happened, but that is important. What happened in the past is important because it's part of who you were. It's your tapestry, and like to see that part where, like, you know, like when you've invited Jesus in, where like that thing changed and you fully surrendered. That's the beautiful thing, man, is to see how God works in our lives when we give over like all the hard things, and trusting. I don't know what else to say, but that's just the proof that God is working, man. Yeah. And so and then when you get to step into His community with His people, man, it's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And so, anyway.
Well, brother.
Yeah.
This has been awesome.
Yeah. This is good.
I've been really excited for this conversation, and it's more than what I thought it would be. I'm really grateful that you came. You took the time to come over, and the way the conversation went, it's like we said at the beginning, God made yourself present during the conversation, and man, He was present this whole time. Yeah. For all of you that are out here, this is Pastor Justin, PJ, Sandals, Palm Avenue. Is a church the church where I feel really comfortable, that I can say this is my church now. I've been going there for almost 6 months now, and I would just invite you, come check it out. Yeah. That's all you got to do. Yeah. But come in and give yourself the opportunity to get to know Jesus, get to know Him more than anybody. Because at the end of the day, He's the one that's going to set you free from any sins that you're carrying, from anything that you might be thinking, why is this wrong? It's like, it's not that it's wrong, it's just simply you got to realign your path, and that is just not the path that you need to walk, and that's something that I experienced. So PJ,
awesome, brother,
thank you so much. For all of you out there, this is Road Conversations. This is not just about business. This is more than that. This is able to happen here at the office in Riverside, California, thanks to a lot of financial sponsors. And for all of you that are out there, if you're curious about getting to know PJ, come and shake his hand, have a conversation with him. He's available. We'll make sure to share your social media. But thank you, everybody. Have a blessed day. Bye.